morning, family of God. Happy Friday. So blessed to be able to make it to another week. Today we are going to be jumping into John chapter 20, and we'll be looking at verses 24 through 29. John chapter 20, verses 24 to 29. And I want you to just take a moment, maybe after this devotion, for yourself, just to read into it. And who I want to talk about today is the disciple named Thomas. Now, you probably have heard of Thomas, and usually the label that the church unfortunately has given him is Doubting Thomas. The church has called him Doubting Thomas, but nowhere in the Bible is that his name is never called Doubting Thomas. But rather, what I want to talk about today is Honest Thomas. Not Doubting Thomas, but Honest Thomas. And honest in the sense of honest about his doubts, honest about how he was feeling, honest about, what he was going through. And here's what happened in John chapter 20, verses 24 through 29. And if you read just before that, what happened was Jesus comes to his disciples and the doors are locked. His disciples are scared. They don't know, they haven't seen the resurrected Jesus yet. But then Jesus appears to them and he tells them, hey, it's me. And he has a meal with them, and he tells them, peace, don't be afraid. Well, Thomas wasn't there the first time that Jesus appeared to the disciples. And so the disciples were thrilled, they were excited, and they were telling Thomas all about it. Hey, Jesus is resurrected. Jesus is back. He's back from the dead. It's true. He is the one. He's the Messiah. I know we were down and out, but it's him. And well, in spite of what their testimony was, and in spite of what they said they saw, Thomas said, I don't believe it. And I'm not going to believe it until I see him for myself, until I see his scars, until I see his wounds, until I could put my hand and touch, put my hand in his side, then I'll believe it. So, 8 days go by, and Thomas is having these doubts, and the disciples are still trying to, I'm assuming, encourage him. And Thomas, like I said, he wasn't there the first time that Jesus showed up. And all of us handle, pain and suffering and let down differently. I'm sure for the most of the disciples, they all came together. They drew together, they ate together, they were there to support one another. And Thomas, well, he wasn't there the first time Jesus showed up. And so maybe for Thomas, and you can relate to this, sometimes there are moments in our life where we just want to be alone. Right? We've been hurt, or we've been let down, or we're suffering. Sometimes we just need to be alone. And so maybe Thomas was alone, and questioning things and wondering, what happened? Here I was, I gave my life to following Jesus. He said he's the Messiah. And how is it that he's dead? How is it that he was crucified, And so we all have those different ways of handling things. And so 8 days pass, and he has his doubts. And the question that I have is, why didn't Jesus just show up, after day 1 or day 2 or day 3 or day 4? The disciples are telling him, look, we saw Jesus. He's resurrected. He's not dead. And yet Jesus doesn't just show up to prove, to Thomas, like, yeah, it's true, I'm here. But Jesus waited 8 whole days, 8 entire days, until he finally revealed himself again to not only the disciples, but Thomas was there this time. And what I want to talk about, and I want us to look at a beautiful picture of the disciples, what they modeled for us. A lot of times, maybe somebody, or you've been living, you're the one, but we might know people who are doubting. And they're doubting God, and they're doubting maybe Jesus, and they're doubting faith, and they're doubting what, maybe what other Christians are saying, their experience with Jesus, their revelation of Jesus, right? There are some people who talk about Jesus, and there are people that, like I said, that we may know, or there are people, or maybe at times it's us who have those doubts. It's us who are like, I'm not sure about this God thing. And what the beautiful thing is that even though Thomas had his doubts, the disciples didn't kick him aside. The disciples didn't say, how dare you not believe our report? No, they still encouraged him. They were still there, so much so that 8 days later, they were all together in the house. If If they were upset with Thomas, if they were like, Thomas, I can't believe you, then maybe they wouldn't have even eaten with Thomas. Maybe they wouldn't have even stayed with Thomas. But Thomas is there. And family, I just want that to be kind of a model for you and I. How do we handle, how do we approach, how are we in relationship with people, with others, with other believers, right? Other followers of Jesus. I mean, Thomas himself was a disciple. And so how do we handle people in our church, in our family, in our Christian communities, maybe who are doubting and are going through a season of doubt? And yet the disciples modeled, hey, here's what we do. We continue to pray. We continue to encourage. And in those 8 days, it might have seemed like nothing was happening, like, where's Jesus? Nowhere to be found. And the disciples are giving their testimony, and that their testimony isn't really moving Thomas to believe, right? And they're still hiding, even though they saw Jesus 8 days prior, they're still kind of hiding out in the house. So maybe Thomas is like, well, if you guys really saw him, like, why are we still hiding? But the disciples, like I said, they come together and they still model that friendship. They still model that prayer, that support, that community, even in the midst of doubt. And so I want you to be a support. Maybe there's somebody in your family. Maybe it's your son. Maybe it's your daughter. Maybe it's an aunt, a family member. Maybe it's somebody you know in church who's going through a season of doubt. And rather than, making people sometimes feel bad for doubting or not believing, just continue to pray. Just continue to encourage them, continue to support them, continue to gather together, to continue to eat together, continue to meet in homes together, continue to support each other, because you never know when Jesus is going to show up, right? And just reveal himself to that person. And that's what Jesus does. 8 days later, boom, he shows up and he reveals. He says, here, Thomas, it's me. Look at my wounds. Touch my side. It's really me. And of course, at that moment, Thomas is like, he starts to worship the Lord. He says, it's you. And Jesus says, Thomas, you believe because you see, but blessed are those who believe even when they don't see. And once again, the beauty of this is that, when Jesus shows up 8 days later, he allows Thomas to go through that process of going through those emotions, going through those moments of doubt. He didn't just come to the rescue, like I said, on the first day or the second day, the third day, the fourth day, fifth. But he does show up 8 days later, and he reveals himself. So I just want to encourage you too. Maybe you're in a season of doubt in your own life. And I want to encourage you that you don't know when God is just going to show up. And even when you and I have our doubts, and we have our fears, and we have the pain and the struggle, the things that we're going through, you and I, God's not afraid of our doubts. God's not afraid of your doubt, right? And when Jesus shows up, he's not afraid of Thomas's doubt. He's like, yo, this is me. It is me. And let that be an encouragement to you and to I that God is there. Right? He's holding that space for us, and that even if we go through those days of doubt, he will reveal himself. He shows up to let us know, it is me. I've been here, So that's it, family. Just wanted to encourage you to let you know that God can handle your doubts, and God can handle other people's doubts. And what God calls us to do in those moments when others are doubting is to continue to support, because we don't know when Jesus is just going to reveal himself to that person in a powerful way. Keep on praying for each other, keep on loving one another, and support each other in those moments, in those tough times, when all we feel like doing is just being honest about our doubts. God bless.